right, so in sales, right, there are 4 phases. Your opener, your discovery, your pitch, your close. And what I find sometimes is when people are struggling with certain things in sales, it usually falls into one of those 4 categories, right? If someone can't get appointments scheduled, it's probably because their openings tactics suck. If someone is noticing that, man, they're getting through to people on calls, they're discovering and they're pitching, but they're not closing. Son of a bitch. Yo, I'm on a podcast episode, dude. What you doing?
Yo, what's up?
Yo, what's up? Say hi to all the mics, yo. So tell them how much you love me.
Yo, you guys are talking to my little baby brother. He used to
Yo, fuck you! Don't worry about him. He's an asshole. Sometimes people will be struggling. They'll be able to get through to an appointment. They'll ask questions. They'll pitch a product. And then the deal will die in the closing phase. And they don't know what they did wrong. Well, maybe there's a problem in the discovery. Maybe there's a problem in the pitch. Maybe you just suck at answering objections, right? But usually your problems are in that one area. So if we understand the 4 phases and we know the main objective and next step of each phase, we're gonna have a much easier time closing more deals, getting more business, and winning. This is the blood of all my enemies. I like to drink it and draw power from them. So phase 1, opening, right? The main priority, right? And I'm going to make an assumption here, okay? I'm making this video for people who are handling every step of the sale, okay? That way SDRs get something out of it, high ticket closers get something out of it, and account managers get something out of it. People who have to sell life insurance or real estate who are on their own get something out of it. But in phase 1 of the opener, our goal is to connect with people who have an interest in our product, or it's our job to ignite an interest for our product so we can get to whatever the next stage is, right? And so a lot of that will depend on the type of leads that you're engaging with, right? If you're engaging with, you know, fresh leads that just filled out the information in the ad, you know that there's already an interest there. And so it's not so much about igniting the interest, but keeping that flame alive, blowing on it a little, keeping the little embers going. That's really the main objective, right? And then to kind of get them through to the discovery phase. Whereas if you're in life insurance and you're calling like 6-month age leads, you're gonna need a little bit more of a hook. You're gonna need to have a little bit more of reigniting whatever it was that made them fill out that form. And if you're just calling straight up people who have no idea that you exist or have no contact with you, think B2B sales, like, yeah, you're gonna have to really have a good hook so they don't hang up on you. That's just the reality. But another thing about openers is that you gotta be aware of the fact that, like, you're not gonna connect with every single person, right? And sometimes it is timing. Sometimes you call someone at the bad time. Sometimes, you know, there's just stuff going on in their business or in their life that just doesn't make this conversation worth it. And you can push past that, and I would definitely recommend you do push past that, you know. But sales is not this magical thing that you have these magical word tracks and that you're just going to say everything perfectly and people are just going to bend to your will. If someone had that power, they would be the ruler of the universe. And there's only one of those, and that's God. That's no one else. So that's why I say with your opener, that's the main objective, right? You gotta find the people that are interested, or you gotta ignite the interest, and then you gotta know what the next stage is, and you have to understand your type of product. Is your product something that is geared for a one-call close, where you're gonna go through all 4 stages in one call, or is your product geared for 2, 3, 4, 5 call close, right? Because those are real, especially in B2B. When you're going after like whales or larger prey, like it's not going to be just like 1 or 2 decision makers. It's not going to be a husband and wife. It's going to be a CEO and a COO and a CTO and a VP of sales and a VP of technology. There's going to be multiple people you're going to have to talk to. Selling B2B turns into I get 1 contact to I'm selling 11. I've been in situations where I talked to a purchasing manager, and by the time we got to the closing table, it's 11 people at one table that I have to now convince to buy the product. That's not that rare, and it can take a course of time. It can take a couple of months even, right? You got to understand what that product is and how that works, right? If you're in real estate, you're not probably gonna sell a house over a phone conversation. You might get a leasing, which is great, but the work still is going to require more time. So what is your next step for your product? And only you can know that. If you're selling something like final expense, you got to go in one call, maybe 2 calls, but one call really hit it hard. If you're selling something like mortgage protection, you're probably going to want to set appointments. If you're selling something like software, you're probably going to have multiple appointments. So you need to know your opening line, like Pat, know exactly what you're trying to do, understand the leads that you're calling, and understand what is the next most sensible step for whatever industry you're in. And whatever that next step will be will usually lead to the second phase, whether it's on that call or another call, but that would be discovery. Discovery. I always say, if you've watched my videos for a while, that sales are won or lost in discovery, because discovery is where we get the information that we need in order to select, pitch, and tailor the right product or solution to your needs. It's the most important phase of a sale, and it's the one that we usually fail the most about. He who asks the most questions wins. He who gets the most information will win. And so this is where you want to ask questions, right? And there are 4 types of questions you need to ask. Number 1, you need to make sure this person is qualified. Are they qualified? What does it take for someone to be worth your product, the investment of your time? And who can you best help? And when we talk about qualifying, we talk about customer avatar. Who is this product designed to help? And when we know that, we need to figure out if they are that person by asking basic questions. Ooh, that was gross. By basic questions. It could be budgetary questions. It could be medical questions. It could be space questions. Again, when I used to sell pottery, it's like we would ask, like, how much floor space do you have for your store? If they were a small store, we knew we couldn't sell them larger, higher end product. So we had to sell them smaller product, which made them not the best opportunity. So you have to understand for your qualifying questions, who's your customer avatar, and what do I need to know about them to see if they match with our customer avatar. Next is you do need to understand their current situation. What vendor are they currently using? What process are they using for SaaS? What CRM are they using? Do they have a life insurance policy? What kind of house are they in now? What kind of house do they want? What's your budget? What's your resources? Do you have a 401k? Do you guys have anybody who sucks at sales? Whatever it is, you need to understand the business. Even if it's B2C, you need to understand the structure and the situation of their lives. These are situational questions, because when you can see the picture of where they are now, we can then start to build to where they want to go. But we can't take them from point A to point B if we don't know where point A is. So those are the type of questions we need to ask. Who's your current vendor for something like this? Have you guys seen issues here? Why did you choose them? Who are you guys currently using? What do you guys currently have in place as far if anything happens to you, so your loved ones are taken care of? Even like if you're selling jewelry, like what kind of rings does she like? Those are situational questions. But the point of situation questions is to get a deeper understanding and deeper qualification of where they are now, so we can take them where they want to go. Okay. The next type of questions is we want to start gearing up from situational questions into consequence questions, right? Those are things like, hey, who's your current vendor? Oh, we use XYZ. Oh, why did you choose them? Oh, because they're the cheapest. Oh, okay. So if there was anything you could change about your situation now, what would that be? Those are the type of questions you want to ask, right? Consequence questions are where you really make the sale and where you really get them to explain the pain. Right? If there was something you could change right now about whatever this process is, what would that be? Oh, it could be cheaper. That's a hint. Oh, it could be faster. Oh, it's just what we got left with, right? And the most important thing about consequence questions is to understand your industry and know the problem your product solves, and 2, to know your USP. What problem does your product specifically solve that the market is dealing with, and ask questions about that. I give the example, when I was selling pottery to garden retailers, it was in the middle of the logistics epidemic that happened post-COVID, right? There was a massive problem with logistics. Containers were costing 30 grand to get to the United States. It was insane. So what I knew is that our company invested the money to have the inventory, and other companies didn't. So whenever I would ask consequence question, I'd ask about the inventory that their current provider of pottery had, and it was always low. It was like, hey, what fill rates are they usually meeting? 50%. That's a pain point, and that's an advantage point. So when asking consequence questions, you want to make sure you're guiding them to see, you're like taking their head and showing them gently the weaknesses of the current provider they have, so then you can take their head and show them the promised land of what you have. That's how you ask consequence questions. So it's not just general. You need to understand what is the number one problem that your current clients are really dealing with, and what is your solution that makes it obvious to go for you. And that's where you have to ask things like, hey, if this keeps continuing, what happens? What happens if we don't put anything in place? What happens to the family if you die now and they don't have anything set up? Are they going to have to put it on a credit card that charges 26% interest? That's where you start to really build the sale. That's where you get them to start telling you why they should buy. The last question you want to ask is a tie down. Tie down is, hey, if I can solve this problem, which you can because you've already asked them questions that you already did the product research and you already know. So if I can solve this problem that I know you have, that I know my product can solve, will you move forward? Something along those lines. That's a tie down. You're getting a pre-commitment from them. And usually at the point of the tie downs, that's when you'll get objections. And I love getting objections here because I don't handle them. I handle them in my pitch. So then we get to phase 3, the pitch. Pitching, unless you are pitching a massively complex SaaS software, pitching should be about 5 minutes. It should not be much longer than 5 minutes. Maybe 7, but 3 would be best, but 5 minutes. All you need to do in the pitching phase is really 4 things, right? You need to educate, you need to inspire, you need to prove, and you need to talk price at the end. When educating, you're educating them on the features and the benefits of your product, and you need to focus more on the benefits. So many people want to talk about the cool little features that their item has. Like this microphone has these, look at the black, and look at the this, and look at the that. I don't give a shit about what this thing looks like or what this thing can do. Do you understand? I don't care. I don't care what this thing can do. I don't care anything about this. This does not matter. What I care about is when I talk, you can hear me clearly. That's it. I don't care about any of that. When you're educating someone on features and benefits, mention the features, explain the benefits. 2, inspire. Nothing inspires more than a story. A story can be a story of a past client. A story can be your own personal story. A story can be, just as long as it's a true story, it's good. And every story has 4 elements. The context of who the person is, who the main character is of the story, the challenge they were dealing with before they use your product, the moment they switch and decide to use your product, and the outcome, right? And this builds relatability. This builds trust. One of the 7 principles of persuasion is social proof. People want to buy what other people have bought because they want to know that there's a blueprint out there that's like them. So if I have 2 different stories, if I'm talking to a female mother, stay-at-home mom, and I have a story about someone who's just like that has success with whatever program I'm in, I'm going to tell her that story. Whereas if I'm talking to a combat veteran entrepreneur who's just a crazy earner, and I have someone else who's in that same category, I'm going to tell him the story about this person. If I can name drop, even better, but most of us aren't in that situation. Thirdly, we need to prove. You need to prove that your product can do what they say they can do. That's testimonials, that's analytical data, that's reference cases. Alex Hormozi has built a multi-million-dollar career on the concept of proof. Proof. Are you who you say you are? Does your product do what it says it can do? Are you just a bullshitter? All those things are important. And so we need to make sure that we gotta make sure that that's real. So proof. Can you prove? And then price drop. What I always like to do with price drop is compare it to something else, right? You know, if I'm selling a fitness program that is $2,499, that might sound expensive until you realize that Ozempic costs $349 a month, which is $4,128 a year. Don't check my math. Don't check my math. I don't know if that number is real, but I know it's in the $4,000. Okay? The average cost of liposuction is $7,000. So when I'm dropping price, I can mention how these prices work. Here's this price, here's this price, here's this price, here's our price. Even if we're more expensive, I can still drop price and drop cost and show how we're gonna save money in the long run. If I have information about how my product helps make someone X amount of money or save X amount of money, it doesn't really matter if my price is higher, because what I can focus on is, hey, you know, Tyler did my program, he spent $3,000 on my training, and his income went from $0 to $10,000, right? Now it doesn't matter. Now we're talking about value. Would you trade $3,000 to me if I could give you $10,000? I think most of us would see the logic in that. Whether we're gonna make the decision or not is yet to be determined, but that's when you drop it. So for the pitching stage, educate, inspire, prove, and talk price. That is how you have a successful pitching phase. Make sure you keep it brief, clear, understandable, relatable. Final phase, closing. Closing can either be where you make or break. It can be the quickest phase, or it can be a longer phase. It really depends on how well you did on the other three phases. How much rapport you built, how much trust you built over the course of a sale. But really the closing phase begins when you simply ask, here's the price at the end of the pitch, how do you want to proceed? Or hey, does that make sense to you? Are you willing to move? Are you ready to move forward? All we'll need is your agreement here to move forward. Whatever word it is, whatever makes sense for you. And one or two things are going to happen. They're going to buy, or they're going to give you objections. Now, hopefully, in our tie down phase, we got more objections out of them. So that way, we really pre-handle them in our pitch, right? By educating us, hopefully we got them out of the way. But not everyone's always going to be forthright about every objection, right? So we shouldn't be having, like, stupid objections, right? We shouldn't be getting objections like, well, we already have a vendor who does this for us, right? Like, those are, like, if you're getting those, you mess something up, or if they just weren't paying attention and they're not worth your time. But most commonly, you're going to get objections around price. A lot of objections are going to be stalls. They're going to want time to think about it because moving forward is scary for anyone. A lot of objections might even be, depending upon what you're selling, business related, like, hey, yeah, this software sounds great, but I don't know if our people will use it. But most of the time it's going to be price, or even if they have the authority to make the decision, they still want to check it with someone else. A lot of times that's what you're going to get, right? And a lot of times your objections are just somewhat misunderstandings. Like, when it comes to objections, we get so scared, and I get so scared, but really, they're not that big of a deal, and they can actually be opportunities, because if someone's giving you objection, and it's a real objection, it's actually can be a sign that they want to move forward, because a lot of people will just say, yeah, let me think about it, and then you'll hang up on them, and you'll let them think about it, and then you won't hear from them ever again. They'll just ghost you. That happens a lot. So when someone's objecting, I don't get nervous. I just move forward and make sure I do these 4 things. And they're going to sound familiar. Whenever you get objection, you just want to make sure that you isolate it, right? Because again, everyone lies, but not really. Like, they say everyone lies, and yeah, some people, they don't tell you everything up front. But you gotta remember too, like, your prospect might not be a professional communicator. Like, your job is to communicate professionally if you're in sales. They don't have that. So they might have something in their gut that just feels off, and they don't know how to express that with their words. It's not always that they're lying. It's just sometimes that they don't know how, they're not great communicators. And so I need to isolate this objection and make sure it's the real objection and help them communicate to me what's really holding them back. And so if someone says, yeah, you know, that price is it's just a lot. Okay, so this is one thing I learned from Matt Ryder. Credit to him. It's his method, but it works really well across industries. Okay, so pricing aside, does everything we discussed make sense for you? Like, pricing aside, if I give you just like 10 grand in a money bag, would you move forward with the program? And if they say they say yes or maybe, you ask, well, why? If they say no, it's fucked. You've lost the sale. Okay, hopefully that we've done enough in each phase to make sure that we get the best benefit. We did enough qualifying, we did enough pain, we did enough of that. But if they just say no, then you're fucked. Like, there's nothing you can do. Okay? But if they say something like yeah or maybe, we gotta ask why. Okay? Well, because of this. Okay, good. So I know that price is the issue. Is there anything else aside from price that would stop you from moving forward? And then they'll say something like, I have to talk to my wife, I have to talk about this, right? But now you're getting all the information. Be like, hey, if we can solve that price issue for you, if we can implement maybe a payment program, would that help? Yeah. Okay, so then can we move forward with that? Well, if they start giving you other objections, now you're starting to see it all come out, right? They might have to say, I need to talk to my wife, which then again, we need to further isolate. Like, hey, does your wife know that you're looking for solutions for that? Yeah, she does. Okay, so then is this just letting her know? Or is this more than that? Well, I kind of have to, like, we discuss our budget all the time. If that's the case, you're gonna have to meet with the wife. And by the way, someone's not a pussy because they have to ask their wife. Okay? Married couples talk about budgets. I know it's this mind-boggling thing. A married couple is going to talk about a budget. Okay? Especially if it's coming out of their own income. Especially if they aren't making enough money from whatever it is they're doing to be separate from the family income and be a real business. Because I know everyone's like, I run a business. I have a business. You have an LLC and an idea that makes you $30 a month. That's not a fucking business where you can justify just spending 10 grand of your own family's money on something. Not everyone is just a pansy for some of these things. If you have that mindset, it's like these single guys and gals that are like doing high ticket sales that have no kids don't have any consideration of the fact that regular human beings have budgets and have budgetary constraints, even if they make a good income, because kids are really freaking expensive and everything is really freaking expensive. I'm not a pansy. But yeah, so that's kind of how you handle it, right? So when you isolate, then what you need to do is educate. And from educating, then you need to motivate. If the motivating doesn't work, then you need to negotiate. Okay? So educating, explain, they're what's available to them. Motivating, that's when you dig back, you kind of bring back that pain that you brought up. Hey, remember how you mentioned that, you know, you're having a hard time undressing in front of your wife because you're so ashamed of your body? What happened if that continues? Right? That's when you start to motivate. You go back to the pain. We just want to help you with that, Rick. That's all we're here to do. Is that emotional suffering worth the $2,499? And Rick, we already agreed that we're gonna get a payment plan in for you, so you're only gonna be paying $150 a month. So before you even, so you're gonna get your body back before you're even done paying for us. So doesn't that sound fair? Oh, but you know, I really can't afford it. Okay, well, Bob, I gotta, you know, maybe I take something away. That is essentially the 4 phases of selling, right? And then after you've dealt with the education, you've got to ask for the sale again and move forward to collect payment or whatever it is. Or If B2B, get them to order off the platform. If they have terms, it's even better, right? Those are the 4 phases of selling: opening, discovery, pitching, and closing. And by the way, once again, we have this entire, way more in-depth course on our school community. You can look below and you can sign up for it. So go to school, sign up for it, get it done. Let's go. Those are the 4 phases of selling. Until next time, keep selling.